All right. So we have about 8 people on. We'll just give them 1 more minute. I will. Oh, here comes. Oh, someone seems to be having trouble dropping in, coming in,
Yeah,
coming in, dropping out.
I can realize that. It happens.
Yeah, so we'll just try to let everyone settle in here for a minute. Must be hard. Well, while we're waiting, by the way, for everyone who's sitting here waiting while I'm admitting people, welcome. And we're all interested in where everyone's from. So drop your location in the chat. I will start.
Okay, and I'll put in mine as well.
I love to see what my favorite thing about doing these is that we get to see where everyone, we get to talk to people from around the world. So for example, I didn't really know Umar before we started doing seminars together. And now suddenly here we are doing one together. So Austin, Texas. My son and his fiance live in Austin, Texas. Nice.
Wow. Hello, Melody. Welcome. Hello, Nina. In Sweden. Wow.
Nice to see.
Nice. What a geographical spread. Wow.
Yeah. So there is definitely New York City.
Hello, Anne. Nice of you to join in from New York. Yeah, great.
Wonderful. Hi, Umar.
It's a pleasure and so nice of you to make it.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I don't know. There's one person having a serious problem, but I think we could get started so that we can keep. Oh, Indonesia. Nice.
Wow.
It's just so fun to see. Yeah.
Hi, Umar.
Hello, Christine. How are you doing? So nice of you. Apa kabar?
Baik, terima kasih. Apa kabar, Umar?
Wow. This is the beauty of the world, It's amazing. Such a small world, and Zoom has made it even more better and joined us all together. Nice of you to come over.
Yeah, thanks.
So we have a couple more people joining, and I will start in 1 minute. If you feel comfortable, it would be great if you could turn on your camera just for a minute so we could all see who we're talking to, because we will be in, hi, Anne. We will be going into breakout. Oh yeah, a few more people are joining. We'll be going into breakout rooms. And so it'd be great to just sort of see who everybody is to establish a conversation. Hi, Melody.
Hello, Melody. Hello, Reza. Hali Shumai Chitorast.
Hope her. Some people are muted. All right. I think we have, hi, Nina. Nina, nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Okay, I'm going to get us started. I think we have enough of a quorum and there's enough of us where we can see each other. So first of all, welcome. There's some new faces to me, which I'm happy about. So this is a World Usability Day speaker series that runs pretty much all year round. And it's something that I'm Elizabeth Rosenzweig, the director of World Usability Day and the president of our board. And so this is just one thing that we do year round. We also run a design challenge, which is already, the jury's already looking at that. And we have a goal for 2022 to get World Usability Day on the calendar of the United Nations. So if anyone's interested in that, I'm just going to drop our website in the chat, and then, you can find out more about that. But in the meantime, what I'm excited about is this this seminar right now. So as I said, what I am very grateful about the last year and a half, and it's hard to find a lot of things, but it's helpful to find some things to be grateful about. I'm grateful that I have been able to make contact and work with and collaborate with people around the world I would have never been able to. And this is a perfect example. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Umar Sharez, and I hope I pronounced your name right. I meant to ask you that before. So he is very impressive. He's applied and taught and researched strategic foresight and scenario planning for 12 years. Umar has designed and facilitated dozens of foresight and scenario planning workshops in Pakistan, Malaysia, Bangladesh, Iran, and Nepal to facilitate making of real-world strategic decisions by corporations, governments, agencies, and cities. His clients in training, consultancy, and report writing roles include the Rockefeller Foundation, International Network for the Availability of Scientific Publications, Think Tank Initiative Program, Institute of Alternative Futures, Bangladesh Enterprise Institute, Yazd Institute, Université Sans Islam Malaysia, Madrasa Foundation, Comms Tech, Hans Seidel Foundation, GIZ Health Sector Support Program, to name a few. And his original insights relevant to futures thinking have been published in academic journals, practitioner-focused blogs, and newspapers. And I just want to add, all the conversations I've had with him in preparation for this have made me think about lots of things in new ways. So without further ado, I turn it over to Umar, who I'm honored to have on this series.
Phew. First, let me, cool down a bit. I think that was a bit too much. The heat's become too much. And actually, it's in Islamabad, where I live. It's getting a little colder now. It's a bit chillier, but still, after all, hearing all that, wow. But thank you very much, everybody. And it's a genuine pleasure having you around, and we hope we'll have more people come and join in as well. So the topic for today, which I will be discussing, is something which is very close to my heart. And I'll just start sharing my screen, and we'll start talking. Okay, could you kindly let me share my screen, Elizabeth?
So sorry, you know what? Sorry, everyone. Okay. We had a moment where we were 100% set up, and then it changed. So anyway, you should be able to do it now. Sorry.
Okay, let's do it now. Okay, I hope you can see my screen, and let's share it. Okay, so we'll be talking about copy-paste futures. Now, this is something which is very close to my heart. I've been with, working with the different organizations for the past 15 odd years. And one thing which I noticed, which always used to be a source of discontentment for me, which also used to be something which, always used to irritate me, trouble me, was we just copy paste stuff from others without thinking of local contexts. And Abraham Lincoln always inspired me, that we are born an original, but most men will die copies, and women, you can add to that. That was always something which inspired me. But when I used to look around, so for example, one of the organizations which I used to work with was called Comstech. Now that comes under the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And we have about 57 member countries, Muslim countries, which are its members. And I was supposed to have a look at their science, technology, and innovation policies, and give them some guidelines, help them out with their educational policies as well. And what really used to worry me was that usually there would be a copy paste of something. Entrepreneurship, a copy paste of something. Ideas about innovation, copy paste of something. And more often than not, they would result in a drastic failure. So that urged me to look into this phenomena and try to do something about it. And we'll try to explore this phenomena together. So this was something which I found very much right in the beginning of my work, something which is called isomorphic mimicry. This is a phenomena which is used in biology. And one animal, it copies another animal because of its, particular skills, or because of its particular features. So this is just basically a copy paste, but nothing else. The classic example would be what is called the eastern coral snake, which is venomous. And then it is mimicked by the scarlet king snake, which is non-venomous. But any predator, it would be wary. Oh, should I go near this? Even though it is non-venomous, it takes the advantages of the venomous snake. Okay. Likewise, there are many other examples. There are, for example, some flies which mimic bees, although they do not have any stinger with them. They don't have any sting, but but that allows the predators, they don't come near them, and they take full advantage of that. The point which I want to make through all of this is that it's and this is something which has been discussed by development experts for quite some time, that what governments do is that they mimic other governments' successes. They try to replicate the processes, systems, and in the name of best case examples or best practices, I've seen a lot of copy paste happening throughout the world. Here I would like to just say one thing, that copy paste, I mean, some sort of copy paste is fine, because we don't want that we reinvent the wheel every time. That is how humanity has progressed. We copy some good ideas from other places. We don't reinvent the wheel every time. Problem then becomes when we copy ideas without any context, without any any consideration at all, whether the idea which I'm copying, the project which I'm copying, the process which I'm copying, whether it has any link to any local context. Would it be successful? So amazing. And the developing world is filled with many such projects, many such processes, where you simply you're just ticking the boxes, but then unfortunately nothing just happens. And so sorry to say, in our best case, recent best case would be Afghanistan, where they copied, 20 years. That's a long window of opportunity. And they had hang on a second, they had a lot of time. And ironic thing is that they've ticked a lot of good boxes. So for example, they say they had an armed forces, tick, the box was ticked. Yes, we have. It was something which existed on paper. The democratic process, the electioneering process, we're having something in higher education, we are empowering women. Lots of things which were said, but unfortunately, which were only existed on paper. They just made the donors happy. And this is one key problem with it. You do a lot of this stuff because you want to keep your donors happy. You want the people who are giving you aid, you want to keep them happy, that yes, we are doing this stuff. We are replicating your processes. So it's just unfortunate many of those things then exist on paper. Or they even exist, you might have some buildings, but nothing practical is then being done. And there could be lots of examples again, and we'll be sharing some of those examples during our discussion. Then while, I knew about isomorphic mimicry, but then I got introduced to the concept of futures and foresight. And that was a new revelation. That really was a paradigm shift for me, the way I started to look at stuff. And I was introduced to it by Dr. Suhail Anayatul. I was one of the premier futurists in the world. And he came up with this concept of what's called a used future. And this is something which we introduce in almost every foresight work or job which I do. We do look at it. A used future essentially means any imitative reproduction of used strategies. And they're inspired by, some image, some story of success somewhere else. And you just copy it without giving any consideration that whether it will be whether it will fit your place or not. And now a classical example which I could give over here is what's called community policing. Now, I don't know what your experience in this is, and we'll be later talking about it. But what I found, and there have been, I've read reviews also. I work with police in Pakistan as well, with the National Police Bureau, and through other police departments as well. It's a nice idea. It's a very nice concept with very good intentions. But thing is, nothing's happening on ground. So you'll have a lot of policemen who are going around in cars who are just burning fuel. You will have people who are, saying, but there is not much data to show that is any crime actually being reduced. Not much data to actually prove that are some sort of connections between people and the police. Are they being created? Because I live on the road, and right next to me, there are lots of people who are right at the nighttime. There'll be lots of police vans and vehicles going around in the name of community policing. They never stop for a minute. They don't see what's happening. They finish their round, they go back home. That's it. So that's one more box ticked. So even when you look at reviews of people in the developed world, they're also very anxious about this project, about this particular thought process, that has community policing actually done what it was supposed to do? It has good intentions. They want to do some really good stuff, and there are some good case stories as well. But in the developing world context, what many police officers, when I talk to them, they also say is that activities like this are non-productive. And what they do is that they stop people from, they want to pursue actual crimes. They actually want to do some crime fighting, but activities like these, because they're imposed on them, they are simply unproductive. So they have to still go through the motions. So that's what's happening. Then these are also aspirations or images, all right, of a future, which might work in some other place. All right, there is a logic behind it. There's a rationale behind why people are doing stuff, but you still copy it. And the best example that I can give over here is that of what's called the tallest building syndrome. All right, because many countries have aspired to have the tallest building. That seems an instantaneous, thing which you can, with which you can recognize a particular city, a particular country. Seems so easy, I have the tallest building in my place. But what we've noticed, and this is something which is now well documented, that whenever a country comes up with a project for the tallest building, so much credit vacuum is created in that country that it will usually be followed by some sort of a financial crisis. Usually, some sort of recession will usually follow. So, and it has happened in Petronas Tower was created in Kuala Lumpur. It happened then, Taipei 101, it happened there. All of us know what happened, Burj Dubai. It's not even Burj Dubai now, it became Burj Khalifa because they had to borrow a lot of money from the neighbors in Abu Dhabi. So they said, okay, you got to put my name, all right? So it's amazing, but still, you still go after it. We need to have the tallest building. Now, I think the building in Saudi Arabia, the kilometer tower. So that's another, but again, they don't look at, why do people in the developed world, they build tallest buildings or build such skyscrapers? There is a need for them. They have issues of, congestion. There is some logic to it. And that's why they do it. And by the many skyscrapers usually have lots of empty stories, all right? So that is also a known fact. But still, you'll keep on going to the tallest building. Let's build the tallest building. Let's build the tallest building without any due consideration, all right? So that was one thing which, that was it for me. I've talked a lot. This is an interactive session and I would like to hear something from you as well. So what I would like is that we're going to put you in a breakout room and would definitely like to hear from you as well, that what has been your experience in terms of copy paste? It could be a life, something which happened in your organization. It could maybe be an experience. It could be something which you came across. And we're just trying to look at something. It's a practice, it's a process which continues and maybe in your organization, place where you work, in your country, or you've seen it somewhere, which is no longer linked to the broader vision or strategy, or maybe the world has simply changed. Okay. So for example, I talked about community policing. A lot of people now are concerned that when you're doing all these, going around in vehicles, you're just burning fuel, just adding to the carbon in the atmosphere. That's all. Nothing new is happening. So it's a changing world. Why not just put in a drone or maybe some smart cameras? Could that do a better job? So it's a changing world. So something might have worked 10 years ago. Now the world has changed, but you continue to do it. You continue to do it. And, it's unfortunately, it's just a lack of resources. All right. And if there are any questions, now is actually a very good time to ask. If there are any questions, any comments which you'd like to make, sure. I would love to address them as well. Okay.
So anybody have any questions or comments? It's fine. You can also drop them in the chat. So what I just did is put the exercise in the chat, just so you'll see it. And you're going to go into 3 groups. So one of the first things that would be helpful for you guys to do, besides introducing yourselves to each other, is pick one of you to be a spokesperson, and you can alternate. The groups are pretty small now that I'm seeing this. It's actually pairs, so you can alternate. But figure out who's going to be the first spokesperson, and then do the exercise, which is an example of copy paste in your life or experiences. Does anyone have questions before we send you off? And we'll do this for like maybe 5-7 minutes, maybe at the most. Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you on the other side, as we say. Oh, there's somebody that just came in. Okay, go. You should be able to, so you should get something to accept.
Hello, Deepshika. So nice of you to join in.
So I'm just gonna have to put them into a group, but do you wanna, do you wanna say anything more before I throw them into a group?
Yeah, Deepshika, what we're doing, we just had an introduction of copy-paste futures. What I would like is that we're putting people in groups, and what we would want is that you can share your experiences as well in terms of any copy-paste experience that you had, if you saw in any organization, maybe in your community, in your country, or any other place where you were, and you could share your experiences with them. So yeah, let's do this. Even if there are any questions, I'm here.
Here we go. There's a few people that aren't back yet. Room 1 seems to be chatting still, so let them finish chatting, and the rest of us will come. Yeah, they must be, they're gonna just get kicked out in a few seconds. I think it sends you a thing that says the breakout room will close in a few seconds, and then you can also hit the leave, which was always my first reaction when I see those dial. I don't know why I hit the button and then.
Yeah. And while we're at it, it's really real pleasure to have Reza with us. Reza has come all the way from Iran and to join us.
Oh yeah.
He actually called me about 12 hours ago and said, like, is that 7 o'clock in Tehran time? I said, yeah, that's the time. Yeah. So nice.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. All right. I think or almost everybody's here because there's one lady who just keeps going in and out. I hope there's a problem with the internet. All right. So, okay, we're back. So what happened? What transpired? Who would like to enlighten us with your experiences of use copy paste? Who would like to go first?
We could call the number of the group if nobody volunteers, but.
Yeah. So group number 1. I think Melody, for a moment, your group could go in. Yes, Melody, you were with Nina. Yeah, please.
Yes, I was going to volunteer. So we talked about the various ways that our organization works and how folks just kind of approach different processes. And some of those things have been in place for many years. And so just figuring out how to navigate through those things, especially like myself, I'm a new person to my organization. So figuring out what is working and what might not be working, but we're just doing it because it's always been that way. So that's one of my most relevant, I think, copy-paste experiences.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Melody, Nina. Okay, group 2. I mean, sorry, it's not the group.
Either one or 2.
Yeah. Who wants to go next?
So group 1 was Anne and Deepshika, if I pronounced that correctly. Either one of you guys? No.
I can speak for group 2, maybe.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in group 2, I was with Reza, and I share my experience working with the government. So I worked with the Indonesian government for about a year in a construction project of schools. And what they do in Indonesia, the government do is they have the prototype for any school around Indonesia. So they don't really care about the landscape. And they just have this I have this prototype, so you have to build the building like this. And the problem in my region, we have so many contours, while the prototype is just a flat building. So they say, I try to convince them we should follow the contour, we should change the prototype, but they say it's not that easy. This is a governmental prototype, so let's do cut and fill. So we cut at least about, that's so many land that we cut just to fill, just to have the soil to fill in the space.
My goodness. Thank you for sharing that, Christine.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that many things like these happen. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
We like to pretend that, we're very logical, rational, everything goes by rationale. Unfortunately, humanity, the large part of our decision making, I wish it would be more rational and logical. Okay, so great. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Deepshika, you were about to say something. Deepshika? Deepshika,
No, I
and she's
was
joined
gonna,
us from India. Yeah. Thank you for joining in, Deepshika.
thank you so much, Umar. I was just going to ask Anne to summarize her things. I was gonna put her on spot for summarizing a group discussion.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So our discussion was, mine sprang from the image that Umar shared with us about the buildings. I have been surrounded in New York City by that for over 30 years, and at least a huge urban planning development 20 years ago and one that's happening right now are pretty much unconscious copy paste scenarios where they're just big, huge, towering glass monuments to business, I would say. There's not a real sense of mixed use or any learning that we've done for the past 25 years, or certainly since the pandemic. No schools, no outdoor space, etc. And Deepshika mentioned that her vision of copy paste was the fact that the technology hubs that are sort of just springing up globally, that the Silicon Valleys basically, and most noteworthy in India, which I would also say these urban developments that are happening in New York are housing a lot of tech companies. So it's kind of like, in that sense, it's like the whole Silicon Valley cultural model is being copy pasted in different locations across the globe. So I think it's kind of interesting that we started out with a microcosmic protocol office behavior, and then to the physicality of copy pasting a building, a physical building format, and now perhaps we've got this culture, this very sort of Western anchored culture that's copy pasting.
Wow. I mean, yeah. Interesting observations.
Very interesting, and thank you for sharing that. And because you see, what you just say also tells us what problem then it emits from it. So, for example, you talked about the Western concepts. One concept which I've been following for the past 20 years in Pakistan is, and other countries, is that of entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship is not a new phenomenon. It's been there since time immemorial. I mean, it's been there. People have been involved in some sort of entrepreneurship. But the Silicon Valley model, my goodness, it's like perhaps works great in the USA and other developed countries, but you need to realize that this model it's an amazing failure rate, more than 95, 96% failure rate. When you copy paste such ideas over here, I mean, we've got some great entrepreneurship models over here as well. Great traditions of entrepreneurship in the India-Pak subcontinent. Unfortunately, all those have been disowned. This model is the one which has been, it has been aggressively pursued and been copied across our universities, and you've created these incubators and science parks and what all not. There are very few things to actually show for, but they still are aggressively pursuing them. And the failure, my goodness, the demotivation which comes out of it. I know people who sold their properties because they thought this was such a great idea. Entrepreneurship is great. You're going to be the next Google and all. Unfortunately, those things never came in. The sort of demotivation which that creates. So not saying it's something which is wrong, but what I'm suggesting is, it disowns our own, trying to experiment with our own as well. That is something which is very...
I think, Umar, when you kind of expound on it like that, what comes up for me is like the whole missionary phenomenon 2.0, where the West rolled out that people have to have certain belief systems, and now we're rolling out, this cultural model that the entire technology system should model across all locations. So very interesting.
Another word, I hope I'm not being provocative, is colonialism.
Well, a lot of this finds its way from post-colonial studies as well. So there's a lot which has been written on that. There's lots of, yes. So that is unfortunately one thing, a very important aspect of it. This is happening there. it perhaps has to be good. Why not? Why, reinvent the wheel here? So let's move ahead. We have a little more work to do, and the interesting bits are coming just ahead. Okay, so we talked about, okay, we just had this exercise. So let's move ahead. What I would like to do today through this particular exercise is that I would like to deconstruct this phenomena a bit more. Because what I've realized is, and one of the things which really made me ponder about this was that when I was working with futures, I came across what's called the causal layered analysis. It's an amazing tool which has been developed by Dr. Suhail Anayatullah. It's a wonderful tool for for creating transformative spaces and creating alternative futures. I found it amazing. Worked with so many teams, so many organizations with it. They've always found it great. That the way it deconstructs any idea, the way it deconstructs any theme, and puts it down to its very basic levels. So I wanted to experiment with the causal layered analysis and see how this phenomenon of copy paste comes out through it. All right, and I would like your help on this. So essentially, what we do in it is that for any theme in the world, for any topic in the world, there are 4 layers. Right on the top is what's called the layer of the litany. Hang on a second, let me just take out a pen, a highlighter. What we have over here is the litany part. It's essentially like any newspaper clipping, like any heading, or maybe it's as superficial as any, a politician's statement, which is very, very superficial, might not even be based on any, any logic, any scientific evidence behind it. But that's what usually, people will look at because it's by, let's say it's by Trump or it's by, a popular figure. So that's what's the litany, okay? Very, very superficial, what we see around us. Behind that is what's called the causes, or what's called the system. What supports these statements? What supports these litanies? So there's the system around us. So for example, just a second, there are a few things in chat. Hang on, okay. Just wanted to. So what supports this? So it could be, maybe the electoral system, the way it is, maybe the bureaucracy, the way systems are, set out in our part of the world or in our particular ecosystem. Those are the things which support it then. All right. And beneath that is what's called the discourse analysis or the worldview. What is beneath it? All right. So we're looking at how does the world look at a particular phenomena. So maybe there's a bigger worldview behind it. Maybe there's a bit bigger, maybe concept of globalization, which is happening behind it, which actually supports that litany, and it supports the worldview. And behind all that, at a very, very deeper level, is what's called the myth and metaphor. Again, this is a place where politicians are great. Somehow they're very great at gauging what is the particular myth or a metaphor which is governing the people right now. What is it that they're going, and we will discuss all this through some examples as well. So what defines it? What are those myths? What are those visual images? Okay, so when I talk about visual images, for example, if I talked about Che Guevara and his visual image, now that when that image comes up, we usually are going to talk about revolution, social change, transformation. The image does this thinking for us. Okay. And this is amazing that how our myths and metaphors, again, as I said, all of us like to talk that think that perhaps we're very logical and rational in the way we do our things. But it's amazing how our myths and metaphors, our narratives, they define what our actions. So recently, for example, we had COVID, and still it's a battle still being fought. The narrative of war was used, and I was amazed at why they choose the narrative of war. Why? I mean, what are we up against? The coronavirus is not the name. It isn't a general which has armed forces. It doesn't hold briefings and meetings. What are we up against? But we still used the metaphor of war, and because of that, lots of people made wrong decisions as well, just because they had chosen a wrong narrative. All right. So that's why I like to use causal layered analysis. And just to explain it a bit more, this is what it is. There is the level of litany, there's a level of systems, the worldview, the myths, the metaphors, and we're going to go through them one by one. So when we talk about litany, It is something which is visible. So example, as I said, it's maybe a newspaper clipping, you know, the newspaper headline, very, very superficial, or a politician saying, you know, making, you know, telling a news. Some of you are from the USA, and I did my, graduation from the University of Houston. So every time I used to be on the road and used to turn on the radio, there used to be a new mayor, and every time the new mayor was saying, we need to create more roads, all right? So that was the litany. We need to create more roads. Actually, let me go back a bit so this will make a little bit sense over here. The litany was make new roads. Of course, you're sitting in a long line, long queue surrounded by cars, and all you're hearing on the radio is every day, need more roads, all right? Then beneath that is what's called the cause, or the system view. So, okay, so if we need more roads, what sort of a system is going to, you know, actually help it? Okay, so let's build more, you know, more of these, you know, multi-lanes. So I remember, I mean, I was there for 5 years. I never saw construction stop. They always used to be having these construction and more construction and more construction, always widening of roads. I mean, 20 years later, I still ask my friends, they're saying now they have more, loop roads. They've even widened the roads even more. So it's a never ending process. So it's it's supported by what's called a system, the scientific and systematic analysis. So you'll have, we need more police, we need more, laborers, we need more, spaces. All right. So that's the system which then supports it. Maybe what we need to do is maybe change the timing of, roads, maybe of the schools, timing of the offices. Then beneath that is what's called the worldview. All right. Why don't we just shift a bit? What is the world doing? What else is the world doing? So Houston it's a very strange place because of all the big cities that I've seen in the USA, there was one place which did not have a metro. It did not have some sort of a public transportation system. I mean, it had a metro system, but no trains, no underground. I just used to always wonder, I mean, Chicago has it, New York has an underground system. Why doesn't Houston have one? Always used to wonder that. But that brought me, when I later came to know about CLA, that's when I came to the myth and the metaphor part. For Houston, for Texans, the myth which I've always seen is bigger is better. And having a car is a source of, contentment for them. You have to have a car. The car defines them. The big macho man will have those Ford cars, those fuel guzzlers, supported by Houstonians as Texans, all right? So that's the myth and metaphor. Okay. Plus, there's another myth and metaphor over here which says that you have to be in an office. You need to come in and to punch in and punch out. That's how we're going to always evaluate you. That's the myth and metaphor. And what you've seen in the last 1.5 years is we've seen because of COVID that yes, online work, virtual work is actually possible, and people are able to do it. But unfortunately, that's the myth and metaphor which does not support the litany. So if you can bring change at the level of myth and metaphor, you'll have changes upstream as well. So that was something, I mean, this was about 15 years ago, but then I came across CLA, and that's the way I then try to analyze this. So that was just something about causal-led analysis. So when I look at use features, let's come back to our particular topic. What comes to your mind in terms of litany, all right? My camera is flickering a bit, so please do not be offended by that, but okay. So for me, the best example which comes in terms of litany is what's called bedazzlement, all right? So it's like this. Let me just turn off my camera because it's causing a lot of distraction. Just a second, please.
Fine. Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, hang on.
A lot of bandwidth going on, yep.
Yeah, it's a problem of bandwidth, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so bedazzlement means that you see somebody who's a bit superior. Let's say a person from the developing world, a president, a chairman goes to some other place, some developed world. He sees some new concept, some new idea, and he's bedazzled. For those of you who don't have English as English is not their first language, bedazzled is like your eyes open up and it's like, wow, what a beautiful idea. Let's do that in our country as well. So yeah, they've got the tallest building. Why don't we have a tallest building? Or they have so much roads. Why don't we have so much roads? And I'll just give this particular example of, what is the concept of concrete jungles, all right? Now, this is a concept, an image which has circulated so much in the developing world. When people in Asia were asked in a survey, what is your view about being a developed country? And their idea was, if we have concrete jungles in our place, we are, we are developed. But when you ask people in the developed world that what is your problems, for example, what Anne is just telling us now, because of these issues, what we have now that in many such places where we have a lot of concrete jungles or concrete Manhattans, there are serious issues of congestion, serious environmental issues, serious issues of equality, issues of resource sharing. Lots of issues are coming up, but we still copy something, the litany, the headline, we still copy that. Now, so what I want you to do now is that we're going to send you back into your rooms as well. I want you to think for a few minutes about some other concepts which come to your mind, some ideas which come to your mind, because I would like to read your mind as well. In terms of litany, maybe a headline, maybe it could be some project which you saw, which was just a blatant copy paste, all right? It could be an experience, which was just because somebody just got bedazzled, said, wow, let's do this over here as well, and it resulted in failure. So I would like you to share some of those concrete examples with us as well. Elizabeth, over to you.
Yeah, so we're going to go back in groups that some people had to drop out, I think, for whatever work. So we've got 2 groups. So you might be in a slightly different group you were before, but that'll make it more interesting, right? Okay.
Yep.
Off you go, right? Okay, so, okay. All yours.
All right, thank you, welcome back. So what do we have? Let's listen to those nuggets of wisdom which you've brought in with you. So who wants to go first? Okay, I'll have to choose myself then. Anna and Nina, who wants to go first?
Nina, you're it.
Okay, Nina, let's hear you talk. All right.
Great. So we were talking a bit about social media platforms that a lot of them come up with a new idea or something, and then some other company will just do a copy paste of that feature or a filter or anything like that. So that's what we came up with.
Wow, that's great. Never thought about that. Yeah, that's what happens on social media.
Yeah,
that's what it is. That's true. That is true. Great example. Wow. Okay, Raza and Christine, what do you have? Christine, are you there?
Looks like she just unmuted.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So
That's okay.
Yeah, Reza, do you want to talk about the centralized process in your city? Is there?
Okay, yes, thank you. I mentioned the centralized city in Iran. Tehran is the biggest city in Iran because of in recent decades, policymaker and manager visit the other countries, and at the first they saw that the developed city are big, and they decided to have a big city in central of Iran. And now we have many problems in Tehran, traffic, air pollution, and so on.
Okay, so cities need to be big. Okay. Yeah, that's a problem which I've seen in so many places. Even in Pakistan, what we're seeing is suburbs keep on growing and growing and growing. And why don't you create new cities? It seems very simple. You could solve a lot of problems, but there's suburbs just keep on going and growing. So I remember the place where I lived about 25 years ago when we bought this place was like my grandmother, she was saying like, you're outside the city, you're going to be in a jungle. Right now, we're right in the middle of the city. And the city has explored so much and all. So great. Thank you very much for those examples. Thank you. And since we have, okay, let's move on with this. So let's move on now to the systems view. And let me start sharing this. Okay, when you talk about systems, it's what is supporting that that litany. All right, this is, hang on a second, I need to shut my camera again. I'm sorry for this, but it's causing a lot of
bandwidth.
Bandwidth is a serious issue.
Yeah.
So there could be any social, technological, economic, environmental, or political causes which are actually supporting it. So, for example, I gave you the example of, the traffic in Houston. It's then supported by a lot of systems which give, weightage to that particular litany. You could perhaps look at it that way, or maybe you can look at some other example. Because it's not necessary that the systems are always supporting a particular litany. So for example, we talk about the tallest, I just talked to you about the tallest building syndrome. Nobody is advising them that you should do this, all right? But they still do it out of choice that yes, this is a system which we want to put in our place. Tallest building systems around it, we'll build a cafe here, we'll build this, we'll build tourism around it. Those are the basic initial ideas. But again, as I said, they're a copy paste from some other place. Again, the other thing which is that is about community policing. So yes, the litany always is we want police to be the protector of society. We want police to be the protectors, the guardians of the society. And for that, the system which they choose is community policing, which in itself, again, is not, there's nothing wrong in it. It's actually a very great idea. When I read the reports, the basic, the premise behind it, it's great, it's wonderful. But the way it is executed, the way it has turned out to be, I mean, all interventions need to have some sort of a cycle where people are checking it again and again. Is it working or is it not working? But you just picked up a model and it is just going unabated without having any checks or balances to it. Or even if those checks and balances are there, they're so, those checks and balances are not able to bring out the faults in them. So, for example, when I talk to officers about community policing and say, should we continue? They'll always come up with some sort of statistics like, we got so many robbers, we got this, when in fact, that still doesn't support, the notion, but they'll still go ahead with it. So what I would like you to do now is that one thing is we could actually go to a bigger room, or why don't we just, let's talk over here. Let's discuss over here, okay? That some ideas, some things which come to your mind, which are in terms of systems, but it's a copy paste. So I've shared with you community policing. I've shared with you the idea of, of the tallest building syndrome. What comes to your mind? All right, let's hear you now. Okay.
So I could share one, to be honest with
Sure, you. Elizabeth, please. Always wanted to hear you.
Yeah,
what you want to say.
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot in terms of data and how data is often, like it's not diverse, right? And I think it results in this problem. And here's an example. In the United States, for sure, the public transportation systems, I'll speak on in Boston, the public transportation systems all are a hub to downtown, right? They come from the suburbs and they go straight to downtown. So if I want to go like around over here, I have to go to downtown and back. So why did that develop that way? Maybe it's not cut and paste and you'll tell me, but so the whole public transportation system was designed for mostly men going to work straight in and out of the city. But what it didn't take into account, and so maybe it's the backside of cut and paste, is all the women who were, they weren't going straight to work. If they went to work, they were going and dropping a kid off, or going to the grocery store, or going to pick up, something else. And so they were going, their traffic patterns were going like this, but public transportation doesn't work for them. So it doesn't like transfer over. So I don't know if that's an example, but it's what I keep thinking of when I hear you talking about it.
It makes sense. It makes complete sense. Even if it isn't a copy, this for me is the biggest indicator of something being copy paste, that even after it has gone by date, everything has an expiry date, then you need to move ahead. So that thing might have been created for, the examples you're giving might have been done for a great reason. But if it's not, completing its mission, then it needs to be replaced or changed or amended or whatever. But you unconsciously just keep on doing the same thing again and again. So
Right.
that is a classical example of, the color
Okay.
piece of time. Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Anybody else want to share some thoughts? So that was a great idea about data and, and something being systemic. Anybody else?
I would share that staying with Nina's and mine social media litany, the system behind that, of course, is technology, it's capitalism, and it's it's an advertising model of business. And so they know that they have to have advertising dollars to keep going. And to keep going, they know that, if things are flashy, incendiary content, etc., they know that they'll always have people on the platform. So just in terms of the limited economic model, that all of these social media platforms are advertising, and it really does not lead to much positive impact. I just think I would just say how limited the economics are of these juggernaut, basically media companies.
Wow, thank you. That's a great example. Makes me think. Well, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to jump in? Okay. Okay, what we'll do is, you can still keep thinking on this, and the point of all of this activity is that we get your, our brain, our neuron cells to fire them and keep them thinking. So I think we've got some great examples. Let's move on to the next one. We've talked about systems. Then behind that, actually below that, is what's called the worldview. Now this is different because these are people who are outside your system. All right, so that they are the stakeholders in perhaps in a particular system. So it's like this. So look at a news item in your particular part of the world, but then you see how BBC covers it, how Voice of America covers it, how a station in Pakistan will cover it. That's going to be very different because they don't have those cultural strings, the social strings attached with it. They have a very different worldview of it. Okay, so for example, this example which I gave to you about traffic congestion in Houston. Funny thing is, when you go across the pond, when you look at Europe, they've found perhaps a different. They found perhaps a panacea. There, walking is encouraged. Their worldview is let's have less and less cars. If you want to move around, they have a very good system of transport. They have a very good system where you have those cars, you have those double-decker buses. Now they're moving towards. Thing is, they say, let's have more healthy people. Let's have people who are who are walking. So that does not cause a burden for us. So same issue of moving and transporting people from home to work and back, but a very different worldview. Or it could be some sort of an ideology. So for example, I talked to you about isomorphic mimicry. That's a classic example of copy-paste while looking at a worldview. What is the world doing? What do we need to do so that we fit in as well? Okay, so I have seen some places where they have, offices of cybersecurity, where even to this, they'll get lots of funds because of it. But when you actually visit them, they'll still have those Pentium class computers there. None of that money actually goes to that place, but the place still exists because they have to say in the Committee of Nations, we still exist. We're also doing work on cybersecurity, or we were doing work on female empowerment or any other issue which comes up. Again, classic example of Afghanistan, classic examples of other countries in Africa. Many of them come up, so they'll say about elections and reforms in the elections. But again, that is just that those just exist on paper. Maybe they'll create a building out of that funding. Rest is just going to people's pockets. Nothing is actually happening. So that's what's called the worldview. What does the world think about it? So let's try to explore copy paste through the lens of the worldview. Any ideas which come to your mind, Elizabeth? You feel free to
Colonialism comes to my mind immediately.
Colonialism is actually a great way of looking at it. Yes, it's amazing that the effects it has had. I mean, I'll be the first one to say that there's been a lot of good effects. To this day, Pakistan was a colony of UK, and to this day we have the same roads, just have modified them. We still have those railway tracks. We still have the bureaucracy system, the way of promotions and all, almost the same. So they give us some good legacies as well.
Right.
Other than that, there's a lot of legacies of colonialism, which are very wrong.
It's not all, but I'm an American, so I feel like I'm like, there's what you said, and then there's like completely trying to wipe out another culture because you think your culture is the one, right?
Oh, yeah. That's the sad part.
That's the sad part. But there's good parts too, because I mean, on the flip side though, the sharing of cultures is interesting. Like there is a little positive, but I mean, the danger is when you think your culture is the only one, right? Or the better one, or you start doing that, then I think that's why I went to colonialism, because it seems to me like the classic cut and paste, right? we're all going to do it this one way, the way this one group of people, decide. So sorry, that's sort of my, that's what came to mind. So you're on mute, Umar.
I mean, Elizabeth, I'm right there with you and sort of stuck to offer another example because that's a huge one in many ways.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not, I mean, it feels like in some ways the root of the whole problem, but I like the way you're framing it, Umar, because it's more of I think about it as copy paste. Then I'm thinking, so everyone in this one little part of Europe, I guess it was maybe England, I don't know, but this one group thought their way was, gonna solve it. I mean, sort of well, we could get off on this whole tangent, but it seems to me that, it's really, UX is about this from my point of view. It's about like the fact that it's not just one way is the only way to do things, right? Like there's the nuance, there's the rest of us, there's like, just because I think differently doesn't mean I'm wrong, so.
Great, thank you for that, Elizabeth and Anne. Anything else you would guys would like to share with us? Anything else which comes to the participants' minds? Okay. We've had some food for thought. Let's move ahead. Let's go to the last one. Okay, last one, but which is the deepest one. And here it starts to get a little murky. These are our myths and metaphors, which actually support all those worldviews, which support all those, which support our decision-making process. I mean, study after study after study has shown us that decision-making is a very emotional phenomena. It's based on our narratives. So most of us would pretend to be, the people of instinct, people of rationale, and, we try to follow some sort of, logic. But a lot of that is also about how our narratives and how they define the data, how our narratives define the statistics and what we do with it. So when I looked at some myths and metaphors, one thing which immediately came to my mind, because I'm from Pakistan, we have something which is called Bhed Chal. And let me just explain that a bit. Bhed Chal essentially means walk of the sheep. So what that means is that you just have to, there's just one person and you follow it blindly. Just follow it blindly. So you just have to, the first one in line, you just have to steer it somehow. That's it. So you talk to a butcher and say the easiest animals to cull or slaughter are the sheep. You just take one inside a slaughterhouse, the rest will just follow. Now, I know that English also, there's something called leading lambs to a slaughter, but that is in a very different context. So I don't want to use that over here, but it's like, that means that you have innocent people who are just going to get culled or going to be in harm unconsciously. This is a little different. The way it's used in Pakistan is a little different. So the nearest that I came to in the English language is what's called one barking dog sets all the street a barking. Why are you doing this? Nobody knows that. Somebody is, we're just following it. We followed the howling, we're doing the same, all right? So that's at the level of myth. Now, all of you are from different contexts, different geographies. You are going to have your own myths and metaphors in your place as well. I would like to know what some of those myths and metaphors are that I've shared too from the English language and from the Urdu language. And there's another myth over here as well, which has come from the point of view of the people who are accepting these copy-paste futures. And those are the people who say that, I'm reminded that my first job was in a government office. And I was very emotional. I was very energetic. So I used to come up with all these good plans and I wanted to do this and change the world and all. So my officer told me that, Umar, you need to calm down a bit. Your efficiency will not get you brownie points. But if you fail, you're going to get into trouble. So that was something, that was a lesson which I really tied to my to myself that, I need to be careful. All right. This, unfortunately, is just one more myth, which is there with used copy and paste. Because why should I get into the trouble of, getting in new ideas, implementing new ideas, when I can always say, this idea worked great in Europe and worked great in the USA, or this worked great in such and such company, let's copy paste it. And if it goes wrong, I will say, you can always put the blame on somebody, all right? So that's a myth and metaphor from the point of view of copy paste. I hope that makes sense, because this is always a little tricky, but I hope it makes sense. So yeah, over to the audience. So what do you say? What are your myths and metaphors from your part of the world? I would like to listen to some of them. All places have some sort of myth, metaphor. So would like to listen to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're each from a different country. So it would be great to hear.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, Elizabeth, I just came across this. Does that make sense to you? This thing about one barking dog sets all the street a barking. Does that make 100%. Sense to you?
Yes. Not just because I have dogs in my family and I've seen this happen, but I think the issue is like with a dog setting an alarm, a dog when they're barking like that, it's like an alarm is getting set off. And then, like they hear each other on the street. So they all do it because they think something's going on. But maybe the alarm is just that the first dog started barking. Maybe that was just, maybe stepped on something funny or something, didn't he?
Yeah.
Right? Like bat or something, dogs do that sometimes. So yeah, that made a lot of sense to me. Okay. Yeah, like the crowd just, getting carried away with, something passing. Well, the other thing about dogs is it's like shiny object and then they all go, right? Shiny object, so yeah, made a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Any ideas which come to your mind, folks?
This is not this is a little bit more than a myth or a metaphor, but a quote that I've been gravitating towards just recently is similar to what we're talking about. It's by Carl Jung, who was a psychologist, and he sort of he's known for the notion of human archetypes. Anyway, his quote is, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So sorry, it's not, I know what you want is myth or metaphor, but in the sense that, we just kind of unconsciously follow. And then people are like, well, why'd you do that? And they're like, oh, I don't know, it just, just happened. This has gotten us into plenty of, negative scenarios, so.
Wonderful, that's great, thank you. That is deep, that really is deep. Makes a lot of sense as well, yeah. Never looked at fate that way.
No, but Carl Jung was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
I mean,
Christine, Nina, Reza, you guys, I don't know, as I said, this gets a little deep. This is a little thought-provoking. I realize at the spur of the moment, it's a little hard for some of those metaphors to come off, but perhaps something you can share from your particular context, your regional or your geographical context. Maybe or maybe not.
Oh, you got one.
Okay.
I would love to hear from other countries. I mean, building on Elizabeth, a thing about colonization, I'd say the myth or metaphor for that is like winner takes all, or,
yeah,
you know, survival of the fittest, that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great metaphor to have over here. Thank you for sharing that. Never crossed my mind yet, but yes, that is great. That survive, that the winner takes all. Yeah, that mentality is, my goodness. I mean, we're talking about entrepreneurship, and I was just reading one of the traditions of the Holy Prophet and said, and there's a great example over there you know, there was this gentleman who came to a shopkeeper and said, I want such and such thing. He said, you know what? My goods for the day are sold. My money is there. The guy across the street, why don't you go to him? And why don't you, you know, get from him? Because today he has had no sales. Buy from him instead of me. So when I read such traditions and all, I'm still like, wow, what entrepreneurship tells us, you need to be cutthroat. You need to cut the throat of your, you know, of your competitors. You need to be the only one, which in a way resonates to what you're trying to say in terms of survival of the fittest, or, you know, the winner takes all. But what about those other traditions which are part of our societies? Those unfortunately have been disowned, and that empathy, that, you know, that getting together of societies, then that evaporates. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That just brought that idea to me, that event to me.
Did anyone else? Go ahead. Reza, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Reza, would you like to say something? I think there's a problem with your mic. Yeah. You want to say something, but I guess there's a problem with your mic because I hear something. Yeah, please.
Yes, and it refers to do not look for new innovation or new activity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you want to say more? No, you're done? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing I've noticed, unless you want to keep going.
No, please go ahead, because just
fine.
Coming to the end, yeah.
Right. So I've traveled a lot in, not everywhere in the world, but I noticed that in the United States, if let's say I'm in New York or something, taxis are gonna, or taxis mostly, or even Ubers, they're gonna like pick me up, drop me off real fast, right? Because they want to get the next one, they want to get the next one, they want to get as many as they can get in. But I was in Jordan one time near the Dead Sea, and this Uber came to pick up my son and I. We were going up to Mount Nebo, and he said, "Oh, he said, oh, this is my last." I think we were talking to him about how we were going to get back. Whatever. Long story short, he said, "Look, I only need to make this much each day, and if I drive you up and I wait for you and then I come back, that'll be enough." And my son and I were like, "Wow! Like you just said." This is all I need. This is all the money I need to work today. And then when I'm done, I want to go home to my family. Like that's the opposite thinking completely. And it just, I never sort of thought, I actually thought I should be more like him. So.
Yeah. Amazing what we can learn from other contexts, what we can learn from other, you know, cultures. Again, the thing is keep meeting, keep those doors of dialogue open. It's been a great conversation. We're almost near the end of our time, just coming to the end of our presentation. I really appreciate all of your, everybody who's participated, and appreciate it. Christine, Reza, Nina, thank you very much for, you know, what all you've shared with me. It's been a great discussion. This is an experiment which I always wanted to do, and I hope I've been able to provoke some ideas, been able to, you know, share some ideas with you, which you can take with yourself as well, and, you know, put in your practice as well. And if there are anything which you would like to share, I'm always welcome. You can always contact me. All of you have my contact numbers details as well. It's been a genuine pleasure. Just my life. I just want to show this slide because I just like this slide. So that's why, just for the sake of I mean, this is what it all comes back to. This is what it all actually boils down to. All right. Our wrong steps, they will take us 1,000 miles astray. I mean, that's why I like futures. That's why I'm obsessed with future studies and foresight. That it has always forced me to think. It has always forced me to think about innovations. It has always forced me to think about processes, and it has always forced me to think of myself that I'm going to be an ancestor of tomorrow. All of us are going to be ancestors of tomorrow, and our kids, our grandkids, our generations ahead, they will be the legacy of what we do. They will, they will remember us as good ancestors or not. So yeah, it's very important that we do not choose copy-paste futures. Even if we do, we are more careful of context. We are more careful of what sort of decisions we make. Because I mean, again, I said, I'm sorry, just keep bringing this up, but this is such a big tragedy. What happens in Afghanistan recently? So much money, so much. I've talked to people over there. I've worked with youth over there, and it's such a tragedy. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Future is uncertain. But they had all those boxes ticked for the past 20 years. Let's not make those same mistakes again. Thank you very much. If there's anything anybody else wants to say, any comments or anything, now's a good time. Otherwise, from my side, it's thank you very much. Thank you, Elizabeth, for creating this dialogue space. Thank you very much.
I am moved by that last piece. This is so amazing to me. But before we sign off, did anybody else want to speak? Anything else anyone wants to say? Okay. Okay, well, I am honored that you came to my speaker series, Umar, and I'm going to be posting this, so you'll all get an email, everyone who signed up, so you can see the whole recording. And I hope, like me, you take some of this with you, and then we can start to become better ancestors. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye.
Have a good rest of the day or night, depending on where you are.
Yes, it's night in my place.
Yeah,
bye.
Yeah, okay. Bye. All right. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Raza. That was great.
It was amazing.